why don't we start with some introductions then?
Yeah, all right.
Sure.
I'll start. So my name is Niels Uitwijk. I'm the studio manager of Studio Gold. And Studio Gold is working on Hearts of Iron. I'm Dutch, I'm not even Swedish, but yeah, so is Laszlo here. But my background is in tech. I've been making games for like 15 years and working at Paradox for 8 of those now. Holy shit. I worked on Imperator Rome was my first game here, and then I worked on Crusader Kings 3 as part of the engine. So my background is very much in the tech side. But for now, the last 2 years I've been running the studio instead.
Nice. I mean, I've not been here for 8 years. I've been in the industry just shy of about 9 years. And I am very much background in design. I studied game design in the Netherlands as well. Sorry, my name is Laszlo Pieper, by the way. Just, I always get this question if people think like, oh, are you Hungarian? Like, because apparently it's not a very common name outside of Hungary. So I've been making games for about 9 years, and 2.5 of those roughly at Paradox. I've been living in Sweden now almost 5 years already. I can say a little bit about like my past. Like I used to work at Fat Shark, where I worked on Dark Tide. So I've worked on some very different games from what Paradox makes, but I've always played a lot of them. Namely Hearts of Iron and Europa Universalis. So I was actually first here when I started on a different project unannounced, so I can't talk that much about it. And then was it the end of last year-ish? Like Niels, we worked together on that project, and then he reached out like, hey, we need something, or we need something or someone to help out in HoI, and would you be interested? And then I very happily said yes, because I think it's a very interesting game, and it was a great opportunity for me to jump in.
It's great. Well, the audience knows who I am. You might, you might not. Bit of steel. I am from Belgium. I make a lot of videos about Hearts of Iron, so this is very much my jam. I've been playing the game since launch. I mean, I've never stopped playing it. There's always something to do. That's what I like about the game. There's always more stuff to do. I've played it 8,000 hours now, give or take, and there's still stuff I don't know. I still figure stuff out now. I didn't know that.
I feel like I have some real rookie number. I think I have about 800 on my personal account. But I've seen your videos pop by, so it's cool to have a chat with you, honestly. Like, I really like your videos. I watch your content.
I think with 8,000 hours, you finally finished the tutorial.
It is a little shocking for people who don't play Paradox games that intensely. They like, you've played 1,000 hours of a game, and you've still not really mastered it. You play 80 hours of Call of Duty, maybe a bad example if it's multiplayer. You play 80 hours of any other AAA game, you're like, okay, we're done here. We're done here. I can put this away and my life is complete. I will never see this again and it'll be fine.
I think I've seen enough people that play games for 80 hours and they still look like paid actors. So,
but it's that's the thing about Paradox games. Like for all of our games, like it's the principle of how we want to make games. So. Yeah, and it's really cool to be able to succeed in that as well.
Yeah. One little fun fact actually that I forgot to mention is I actually worked at Paradox at the start of my career, but I worked at Triumph instead. Triumph Studios, who makes Age of Wonders, Planetfall, and Age of Wonders 4. So I worked on Age of Wonders Planetfall as well. And I remember then the big boss at Triumph, he said like, usually people come back. And when I came back to Paradox, I met him and I said like, well, technically I am, so you were right. Yeah. That's a little fun fact that I've sort of gone full circle and circled all the way back to Paradox in a different shape.
They always come crawling back.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you play Hearts of Iron 3 as well by the way? But
very poorly. Very poorly.
This sounds very relatable. I played it once.
It's a game I wanted to like. I put a lot of time in trying to like it. And it just never really clicked. It was just lacking that something, and I still don't know what it is, because Hearts of Iron 4 has it, Hearts of Iron 3 doesn't have it for me, and I'm not sure what it is, but I think part of it is just the user experience. It's so much smoother.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually give a little bit of input, even though I wasn't here 10 years ago, right? But for people that might not be aware, the original game director on Hearts of Iron was Dan Lind. Very cool guy. And I think one of the big things that he wanted to establish for Hearts of Iron 4 is to make it actually more accessible in that sense, right? And I remember playing, because I wasn't at this company back then in 2016. I remember when it came out and I played it, predominantly coming from EU4 and EU3, that I then also as a consumer, as a player, praised it for like, wow, this is so easy to get into and it's great. I do think nowadays it's a bit harder, like just because we have so much stuff that we added to the game, right? That it becomes harder for people to onboard. So even though we do try doing this very much and we do put a lot of effort into making the UX nice, it's still one of our goals, but it is harder when time goes on. That's just sort of the name of the game for Paradox games, I would say.
Yeah, I started playing Hearts of Iron 4 in 2018, so like 2 years after launch, and it's only because I joined the company. I hadn't heard of Hearts of Iron 4 ever before, but yeah, it's a strange thing. Like if you think you're like a history nerd, which I thought I was, and then you join Paradox, you realize you know nothing about history. Like you people working here, that's like they know the details of the details. It's insane. Anyway, that got me like, because I always had an interest in World War II. But then once I got there, I was like, okay, cool, I should try this out. And then as a developer, it's if you start developing a game, it's very hard, or at least I can't play those games as a gamer anymore. I am then a developer, because I will see issues, I'll see bugs or performance, like whatever it is. I know I can fix it. And if I know how it works, it loses the magic a bit. So for the longest time, I did not want to have to do anything with HoI, because it was the only Paradox game I played since 2018. Because I worked on all the other ones, but yeah. So that I lost that kind of like magic now for Hearts of Iron 4. But
this is my special power. I can turn off my developer brain and I can play it as a consumer. So sometimes I come home after long days of work and you know what I want to play? I want to play some Hearts of Iron. And then I launch Hearts of Iron and I play it. And I actually really enjoy it as a player. And then I do give feedback, right? Like to myself and like to the team, like, I didn't really like this and we should fix this, or I find a little bug. So I do this, but I can still very much enjoy it and like have that magic, which I think is very important in the position that I'm at, that I can do this. But it's, like, I'm happy that I have the superpower.
Yeah,
I think not everyone has this. I'm very aware. Like we have a lot of people that are like, oh God, how do you do that? And they tell me this when I say it.
It's actually it's curious, because one of the questions / accusation actually I hear a lot from the community is the devs don't play their own game. They don't play this game. They don't know. And to what extent is that a thing? So,
well, we play the game every week. It's mandatory, basically. We play 2 hours of multiplayer every week. So that's everyone in the team. That's artists, that is designers, that's programmers. This is basically everyone. But besides that, we also play the game in like single player as well. But that happens less often. It happens usually more when we know, like, okay, we finished a stretch of work. We can get some specific feedback for. If we take Thunder to Gaze as an example, like, okay, we finished the Fascist Spa for Australia. Cool. Now we ask people this week to play Fascist Australia and then give feedback. And then people can choose to either play that in multiplayer or they can choose to play that in single player. So it's 2 hours mandatory every week, but I would say that for some people that's it. But for designers, I think they play a lot more.
Yeah.
We also, our QA, they play the game all the time. They know everything about the game. And then a few of our designers, they know also pretty much about the game.
Yeah, they know like every little detail. I'm not at that level. Like I said, I played it about a total of like maybe 1,200 hours if I count the hours from my work account as well. So
but it's also different, right? Like you're not expected to know that either. Right? That's why you have
to of course. But I mean, I do, like, I can give a little bit of insight, like what my sort of expectation is, right? Like what Niels is saying is, it's very much true, but I expect the designers to have a deeper understanding of the game. And I do think it is the case as well, is that, you know, not everyone is like an expert on World War II or an expert in HoI, right? Or necessarily, like, we don't have anyone that doesn't like playing the game, but we do have people that are less interested or find it really hard to get into the game. So we do have some like things that we want to do, such as having tutorial lessons basically for people that have a harder time. Because I want to push for this very much, that I strongly believe that in order to make a game for others, you need to be able to play it and assess if what is fun.
Yeah.
And if you can't do this or you don't understand it, then it's really, really hard. I would say, like, when we have, for example, balance issues when it comes to, modifiers or advisors or even a regimental support, I think things like that, they can happen mostly because we're only this many people, right? That's one thing, but also a designer or a developer, I would say, does not necessarily know the implications of like what does 20% soft attack means on X or Y. And that's where we have experts, right, who have played this game basically since start and have probably 5,000-6,000 hours who do know.
Even more, but
yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is that sometimes this does happen. So I would say to sort of circle back to the question, right? Like, we play the game, it's very important to us, but not everyone plays it with the sort of ferocity necessarily, and the knowledge in order to like always make the right calls. For that, we have, like, I would say, designer experts. That's how it mostly works.
But it's exactly, I agree with that. And we also started doing something new, like a few months ago, like the more sort of like newbie sessions and more competitive multiplayer sessions.
Yeah.
And that's probably also a way for us to sort of hone in on the balance a bit better.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the biggest challenges that we face. I mean, we're kind of jumping the gun here maybe, but this is one of the biggest challenges that we face, right? We have a very big community, and you always, when you have a big community, you will have different cliques, basically. We know we have the MP guys, right, that really love the sort of sweaty competitiveness. And then we have people that really love the LARPing aspect, or people that just love, like exploiting the game, or people that love exploring, old history, etc. And all of those like parts of the community are very important to us, but it becomes the issue of if you listen to everyone at the same time, like you can't really please everyone, because then you effectively please no one. So we have to walk this delicate, like thread the narrow path and like have this delicate balance of like what do we do for the game that is sort of healthy for all of these aspects of the community. I think that is probably a very big challenge that we will always sort of have to deal with.
Do you, like, on the subject of like balancing the game, it has been in development actively for 10 years. There's been a ton of balancing. Like, what drives those decisions? Is it purely like metrics, telemetry, or we are seeing this out of the community? Is this we are getting vocal feedback on the forums, on the Reddits? A mixed bag of everything? Like, do you look at something and say, this is broken because, I don't know, 100 people emailed us about it, or this looks broken because telemetry is saying everyone's doing this?
It's very much a mixture. It really depends on what aspect of the game. For example, if there's stat bloat, right, then a lot of that comes down to usually user feedback, saying like, oh, this is stat bloaty and it adds so much more soft attack, etc. And like the cost of this regimental support of this division battalion is off because it costs this much IC versus what you get stat wise. That I think is very community driven.
But also like the fact that like you find these combinations, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
some of these combinations are just mega overpowered.
Yeah, exactly.
And we would have just
you should see some of the people's work with the new division designer, because holy shit, the infantry you can make.
We're aware.
Yeah, we are very much aware. We are looking into it. But like it's sort of for to the other aspects of focus tree balance, that is I think a little bit more data driven. It's also community driven when people complain about like, well, this is too long of a focus for the sort of gain that I get out of it. So we do look at both there. But in sort of terms of pick rate, etc., a lot of this is data driven. And then, of course, a lot of it is also just us playing the game. Like I said, I played a game. I recently played the Spanish Civil War, and I was like, well, there's a lot of focuses here that the power level of these are very off, so we should probably see if we can lower them. This is not a promise, by the way, we're doing this, but we will at some point, probably. It's not like next patch, we have a Spain rework.
Maybe the patch afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. But we do actively look at it, and there's different ways we do interact with that.
That brings me to something else that people have brought up a lot. Because it's an older game, it has been in development for so long. You can clearly two things actually. One, you can see the vision pivot over time from pure World War II sandbox to a much broader array of options with the alt history stuff become more prominent, but that's second question. First thing is you can see the power scaling of what we can call the modern focus tree versus some of the older ones. And one of the most recurring complaints is, why doesn't anyone touch these up? Are they lazy? Now, obviously, there is only 24 hours in a day. There's only 8 hours of work in a day, and Sweden labor laws, etc. can't just lock you in a room and make you do it. But is that a conscious choice to leave content as is and focus on the new with the intent of maybe someday we can rehash it for DLC, or is it just we would love to keep this updated, we just don't have the capabilities right now?
Yeah, I mean it's about exactly what it is, right? You have only so many people working on the game, and it is a 10-year-old game, so updating old content is something we do consciously do. It's just we sometimes miss stuff, and that I think we could get better at. But yeah, updating like all the old trees, I think that, because it's not as simple as like if it's just a number tweak, we often just do this.
Yeah.
But often just a number tweak is not enough, right? Like you then need to maybe back in the day we had different kind of flows, or like okay, this is kind of different beats that we want to hit in a focus tree. And that has changed over time. And so if we want to modernize that, that means maybe we need to add 2 or 3 focuses, which means we need to add localization, which means we need to add some art to this. We need to then balance test it because the historical AI that needs to be updated probably.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of stuff just gets involved in there, and then it quickly bloats.
It's a very big trickle effect, basically. For
Exactly.
relatively small changes that even we, on our side, we're like, it's a small change. And then you start digging into it like, oh, actually, this is going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it also depends very much on the magnitude. To sort of use Spain again as an example, which I think is a very fun tree, but it's quite old. It's from La Resistance. Yeah. But if you look at the way that one was built, right, that is not really up to par like how most modern trees are built, where most modern trees are very much, you have your industry section and your army section, and then you have your political branches, which there might be some intersection between those. But the Spanish tree is very much like if you go nationalist Spain or you go like Carlist, then this is the sort of economy that you have. And there is some intermingling at the bottom, but a lot of it is very centered around those paths specifically. So I think in those cases, like updating them just with a patch is near impossible, because we'd probably, if we wanted to bring it up to the modern standard, we'd have to almost redo the whole tree. Not necessarily, I don't think it's not necessarily needed, because I do think it is a strong tree, but just to give an example. But if you look at more recent trees, let's say Soviet Union, for example.
That's a good example.
That's a really good tree. That is also, I think, the first example of what we consider internally a modern adaptation of a focus tree. But it is still, as I said, you have the 5-year plan on the left side in the industry branch, and then you have the political branch where you choose the center or the left. But that is a little bit easier for us to say, like, okay, we've added some new mechanics now, 3 DLCs. We can go back and add a little bit of like fluff here and there, because we can add some effects to existing focuses. So we don't even necessarily need to add ones, or we can replace some things, right? I think a very good example of this is when we did the doctrine rework with NCNS, that a lot of focuses still have this, oh, you get a cheap doctrine, right, for minus 50% discount, which in some cases they're like very low in the tree, and then in the old system that was fine, but in the new system that doesn't really make any sense anymore. So then do we replace it with mastery? Do we still want them? Do we want to move them up in the tree? So that becomes like a whole can of worms that we do actively look into, but there's, as Niels pointed out, there's only so much of that we can do.
But we have some plans to look into.
Yeah, exactly. We have some
future
future plans to actively target parts of the map that are very much in need of some rebalancing and adding some like more modern effects, and like lowering the focus cost, like from 70 to 35 days, for example.
That's a very common complaint I get as well. Why does it have to be 70 days? Why does it take 3.5 months to do anything?
Yeah.
I mean, Is it legacy? This is what we built the whole system on? It was 70 days at the start, and all the calculations run off that or multiples of that?
Yeah. So no, I mean the multiple is 7 days, right? Like you can. So it's like internally a focus is then 10 cost, which means it's cost 70 days because it's 10 times 7, and that's why you also end up with 35. But because then we change the cost to 5. Yeah. But I think the thing here is a balance. Yeah. Is that if you are playing later in the game and you're quite active, then having a focus every 35 days is not actually that nice to play with. And so then having 70-day focus is probably fine. But in the beginning of the game, when you're just building up your country, like you're just waiting a bit more, then 35 days feels a lot better. So I think that's sort of like how we look at the balance at the moment. And also sometimes it's like opportunity cost is like a big thing, right? Like, do you want to go for the 70-day now, or do you want to go for it later? I know that for the Philippines, we experimented with like having a 210 days focus.
Reductions, basically.
Exactly, and we just cost reductions, so you can then decide more like, okay, when are you going to go and take off the penalty?
It's also a power level question, right? Because I recently played South Africa, also a very old tree, from Together for Victory. And I had one 70-day focus, which basically gives you one building slot and one civ. And I was like in the same game. I was like, let's look at the German tree. And then their second focus on the industrial is like, here you get 2 civs for 35 days, and also plus 100% research bonus. I'm like, this is
There are focuses that are 70 days to give you 1 level of railway in a single state. I think it was Canada that had that. I think it has been changed now, but those were the egregious ones where people look at it and go, does no one check this?
Yeah, no, we do, but it's just a lot of content.
Exactly, it's too much content for us to keep up to date on. But again, like this is the stuff that we do look at. Like if people report this in the forums and we have time to sort of address this stuff, then we do that. Like,
so
it's basically as simple as that.
It keeps coming up like it is a lot of content, and it is. It has been a decade of active development. Do you somewhat feel like it is both beneficial in that it keeps the game fresh and it keeps the player engaged, but it's also a bit of a detriment because you're building on a foundation that's a decade old, and it may not entirely lend itself to what the modern gamer wants right now from their game. Because I see a lot of things that make you wonder, why is this done in this particular way? Or other problems that are, it's not development issues, just that there have been 10 DLCs, say just roughly, say 10, there's been 10 DLCs. Each of them is basically a silo in terms of what they contain. You can't build on the mechanics the DLC is introduced in other DLCs, because then you make that DLC mandatory, and now everything feels bolted on instead of integrated.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Internally as well, quite a bit actually. I would say it's realistically, it's one of the downsides of having a game alive that long. On the other hand, right, like the game is super popular. People still play it, like millions of people playing it. So we're still, we're doing something, right? But it is, I mean, we know that as well in development, right? Like some things are taking longer than we expected because of that. But this way we also integrate some of the older DLCs, so then those are then part of the foundation. But we look at that quite carefully. So.
Yeah, no, that is a big help. It is for sure a big issue that we run into. It's not very easy to go around it, and it's exactly as you said it as well, right? It's that parts of the DLCs are siloed, and then there is some integration across DLCs, but then you just sort of widen this web more and more. It's like, well, if you have this DLC but not that one, but you do also own this one, then it gets super complex. So we try to limit that, because otherwise we have a lot of overhead on our end, and that we have to maintain different systems, and then you have bugs that only apply in one system whereas in the other one, and then it makes it harder. Like, do we prioritize this? Like, how many people actually have this issue versus people that own all the DLCs, etc. So it very quickly sort of spirals out of control.
I want to sort of talk about this actually. Like, people sometimes talk about the balance of the game, but it's maybe good to know, like, we mainly balance the game if you own all the DLCs. Like that is how we run any of our balancing tests.
True.
So for some reason, we sometimes get these reports like, oh, the balance is completely off, and then they don't have all the DLCs. But this is the thing, like I don't know, I try to do something about this. I do quite a bit of work with this. It's like one of the things I can do between all my meetings is to look at AI behavior. But it becomes like it's quite tricky to find the balance if you are missing like, oh, you don't have no step back, then like, okay, I guess the tanks are completely like, I don't even know how to think about it.
And it's the same for the, it's actually a good example that I can talk about in sort of terms of scope. So if you don't on no step back, right, you have the old tech tree, which just shows the actual icons of the actual tank models. If you own the DLC, you won't really see those. But we do add art, for example, for all those icons, which is like, of course, it would be nice if we didn't have to, because then we can spend that art elsewhere. But it is things that we have to think about. I think those icons also become available when you make the design, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like it's lost work, right? But that's not as visible as the whole tree.
We're also aware with specific dead examples, like we have like the flavorful names, like you have the Panzer 3, Panzer 4. And if you have no step back, then you don't have that. You have the improved medium tank.
Yeah, exactly.
We really want to get those flavor names back, but we have not been successful yet.
Yeah.
I think with Götterdämmerung, we did a push for that, but then we ran into like a wall of problems that we think we can solve. We just, it needed, I think we had like 2 days to do it, and we need like a week or two. So.
I think that's usually how it happens when we have these things that are larger, similar to content reworks of countries, is that some of that development happens in the back while we're sort of working on actual like DLC content. So it doesn't come out as the same or with the same sort of velocity as the DLC content, right? Because someone might have like, oh, I have a few spare hours here, and then they're just going to work on their little thing, which then will end up in a patch in the future. But that's also one of the ways this works, is that happens often on sort of off time, if you would call it that.
Then couple of like the two big ones that I have had personally. How has the culture, not really culture, how has like the vision pivoted from the initial release, this is World War II Axis Allies Soviets, towards what it is now? I think the main inflection point was Waking the Tiger, when people saw, holy shit, all history's fun. How has that impacted like development? Because you can see a very clear shift from that point forward, from very relatively tame historical trees like, oh, this is here, take this and go play World War II, to the world is yours, do with it what you will. How has that like changed your development vision for all the stuff that comes out now? You actively go looking for what would be plausible, less plausible, hilarious alt history stuff now?
I think I mean, again, this, right, like a lot of stuff like this happened with Dan and Peter. I think it really depends on the person. I am not necessarily someone who's the biggest like lover of those kind of like completely out there. But one thing that we do know, right, is like some nations, they kind of need this sort of push in order to be fun. Because I do think how I look at the game is like, yes, it is a World War II game, and that's how I predominantly play it. But I also sometimes enjoy playing it as a sandbox, and I am in the sort of the snapshot of time of World War II, but I want to play as Venezuela or something, and I want to reform Gran Colombia, which is not necessarily like historical, and it's also not really out there. I would say I know there are some other ones out there, but I think it really depends on that a lot. Like, it's easier for smaller nations to do this because they kind of need this push a little bit often.
Think about Poland, for example, right? Like, historically, you just, you die in 1939.
Well, if you're bad. I mean, if you're bad, yeah, sure.
I am bad. But, or you need to get like a bear as your country leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah. No, so I think we... so in Waking the Tiger, I think it's been talked in the anniversary video as well, like Waking the Tiger was definitely like a clear pivotal moment for that, where we realized like, okay, alt history, there, like a lot of people are interested in that. And I think we've gone to the paths where like we're very memey or very like out there, like Wojtek, but I know that after Grave of Empires, like we also internally sort of discussed, like, okay, let's try and find more balanced, more reasonable,
A bit more
sort of-
grounded.
a bit more grounded, like alternative historical paths. My personal feeling is now that with Turn to the Gates, we've sort of, I think it can be a bit more out there, is my own personal feeling, but I mean, that's not up to me. So because I enjoy actually playing, I mean, when I'm playing HoI, I want to be in the driver's seat. I want to determine what's happening. I don't want to play the allies. I think for me personally, that's very boring. So then I want rather play as Fascist Australia and then take over
The Pacific.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it depends which mood I'm in, really. Like, I can very much play and LARP as Romania, switching sides in 1944. Or I can, do something completely crazy like Habsburg Poland and like eat all of the USSR and also enjoy myself. I think the key is that we need to strike a balance, because we know there are people that really enjoy doing these alt historical paths. But we also know that sometimes there may be too much out there and like grasping at straws. And I think, again, we need to strike very much a balance of what is fun, because in the end, it is a game, right? We're making a game. And yes, I do think HoI is a very good sort of war game around World War II, but I wouldn't argue necessarily that it's like a hardcore sim, as, for example, one of our other games, Victoria, is much more on the sim side of things, right, where it simulates all the population and everyone has like a job and they need to have needs and they eat food, and if you don't have food, and it almost becomes like Sim City on the world scale. And HoI is not that, right? HoI focuses on the war aspect. And I know this was an initial vision of the game, and that I don't think has changed much. But it's also because we are limited to World War II, right? Like if you look at Stellaris, for example, they can do anything, like, because the sky, or not the sky, the outer rim of space is the limit, I guess. Whereas with HoI, like, we have this time frame where countries exist on the map, and that's what we can do with it, right? And in order for us to be able to support this game, like, how many times can we reactively redo countries and make them like better? Like, I think we kind of need to look into that sort of alt historical and what are fun things to do within that time frame and make the game a bit more sandboxy in that sense. Because I tend to call HoI one of our least sandboxy sandboxes. Because one of the initial visions was also that you are on this sort of roller coaster that you're sort of like building up towards the world tension, and then like you have the big climax on World War II, and then the game is kind of over, right? So I think it's very important for us to stick with that, but also explore other areas that are actually fun, because we want to have fun experience and sell that to people and have them enjoy it.
So that last comment you made, like, it is a roller coaster. You're climbing up to that big drop, and afterwards it's over. Brings me to my last and possibly most annoying question. That was the vision at the start. That is what a lot of the foundation is built on. To the great displeasure of much of the community, the peace system is part of that initial great vision, meaning every war is a war to the end, no matter how insignificant. Now, I've seen and have experienced that many different attempts have been made to ease that little in certain edge cases. We have border wars that sometimes work. There's now been mechanics added, limited wars that, when they work great, until the AI goes haywire and is at war every 30 seconds. But, bugs will be bugs. Is there an idea that can we have something between a border skirmish for a province and total war to the last man? Because that's the options the player is confronted now, and I don't much feel like sailing from Perth to London every time I want to do something with an island nearby.
Nice journey.
I mean, that's a good question, and this for sure is something that we see pop up often. We, not to sort of like go into too much detail, but we take this quite seriously. That yes, there is this vision of the game, and with the old vision of the game, right, this was not something that they wanted to do because of that reason, that there was this build up and then there was the climax, and that was I think much easier because back in the day, the only real like playable countries or like the ones with content were the majors, pretty much, with some minor country here and there. But now we've added so much more stuff, you know, where you have more regional conflicts. Like you can play in South America and have your own little thing. I do think there's a bigger like kind of need for it, and the way like, we've tried to solve this now, right, is through the border wars and through the limited wars in Siam, for example. And I would say it's not out of the question that we want to sort of explore this more and expand upon that.
I mean, we talk about these things all the time,
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
And this is one of those topics we talked about.
It's definitely one of the more bigger topics that is ongoing internally that we talk about. So
I look forward to the day I don't have to sail to the US anymore, so I'm eagerly awaiting whatever comes. I think with that, I've exhausted my list of questions. So I would like to thank you for the time you've taken. Congratulations on your decade-long journey with HoI4. It's been a wild ride for me as well. And yeah, I look forward to whatever is to come, because I'm sure it's going to be interesting. No matter what, it's going to be interesting.
I hope we can deliver. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what we
exactly.
aim to do. So
We aim to please.
yes.